I read the results of a study this week that I found shocking. Of the doctors and nurses surveyed at a Pennsylvania children's hospital, 95% said that they felt working while sick was risky for their patients. Yet, 83% said they go to work sick. Okay guys, I understand that you don't want to let your patients down, but doesn't it go against everything that doctors stand for? It's a big, messy question, but one that's worth asking. Can you trust your doctor? The short answer is yes, absolutely, because your general practitioner is legally obligated to keep you out of harm's way. The long answer, however, is more like, well, not exactly. The overarching medical industry, like so many big traditional institutions, is facing a problem. Money and power are clouding its judgment and putting the general population at risk. Take major pharmaceutical companies, for example. In 2004, the FDA approved Pfizer's Neurontin, an epilepsy drug. Epilepsy, by the way, affects around 1% of the American population. Yet, Neurontin became one of Pfizer's best-selling drugs of all time. How did that happen? I wonder. Pfizer offered incentives to researchers who undertook studies that showed that this drug could treat other ailments like bipolar disorder, hot flashes, migraines, tension headaches, restless leg syndrome, and so many more. This earned them $2.7 billion in profit. Pfizer was eventually sued for illegal marketing of this drug for $430 million. That's just 17% of their ultimate profit. It's the conundrum of corporations. How can you police something whose lawsuits represent a mere blip in their profits? And it's not just the pharmaceutical industry. There are stories of unethical behavior over in the biomedical research industry as well. A good example is outlined in the anger-inducing yet fascinating story by Rebecca Skloot called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, our latest AsapSCIENCE book club book. Lacks was a mother of 5 living in Baltimore, Maryland, who was diagnosed with cervical cancer in 1950 at Johns Hopkins Hospital. During her treatment, a sample of her cancer cells were sent to Dr. George Otto Guy, a medical researcher, but they were sent without her knowledge. The subsequent cells, known as HeLa for Henrietta Lacks, are considered the first immortal cell line and still exist today. Immortal cells are cells that, due to mutation, replenish indefinitely, a very, very valuable quality for a research lab. Because of this, HeLa cells were quickly bought up and sent to labs all over the world, giving Dr. Guy notoriety and power and leaving Henrietta Lacks with not anything close to that. She died in 1951. On the upside, HeLa cells helped develop the polio vaccine, they were the first human cells ever cloned, and they've even been sent to space. On the downside, the Laxes had no idea until years after her death that these cells had been taken at all, and yet Dr. Guy continued to reap the benefits. I should note also an important part of the story. Henrietta Lacks was a Black woman. As we all know, racism in America is an institutional problem, and this story is not rare. In fact, Black people in America have had to deal with a lot of medical atrocities. There's the 1932 Tuskegee experiment, where hundreds of Black men with syphilis, a painful, debilitating disease, were simply not treated just to see what would happen. There were the night doctors who exhumed Black slaves from graves to use as cadavers. There were the 1971 radiation experiments, where Black cancer patients had their full bodies exposed to radiation, a practice that was by that time proven not to work. Yet, a quarter of those in the experiments died from radiation poisoning. But these stories are important to keep in mind when we think about how the medical industry can manipulate us and how institutions have a hold on us. I mean, it seems basic that no human body should ever be used objectively, let alone as a freaking science experiment. 2, it seems obvious that no one person's life should be ruined or taken because of an act of self-interest. No one person deserves to live more than the other. All races, genders, sexualities, nationalities are created equal. We are all from the same species. Considering that people of color make up just 10% of American physicians, it's easy to see why these stories are buried. It's threatening, no matter how many apologies are made for the atrocities. And privilege, as usual, weighs heavy. While the very true story of Henrietta Lacks remains largely unknown, hyperbolic skepticism of the medical industry has led to things like the anti-vax movement and the prevalence of gluten-free diets. And most of this information is presented by white people on blogs. And it's movements like this that prove that we can't turn our back on the medical industry. You have to trust your doctor. You should trust your doctor. It's not black and white. We have to remember the huge list of medical breakthroughs that we've had, of the researchers who are fighting cancer and Ebola. But change has to happen from the inside out. To rebuild trust, pharmaceutical companies need to face harsher punishment for acting in illegal ways. Stories of unethical behavior need to be told to the public openly rather than buried. And of course, we need to be critical of everything that we read. But because this is book club, we have to keep reading. So, what do you guys think? I'll pick some comments to talk about in the next episode. The next book we'll be reading is The Emperor of Scent by Chandler Burr. I'll put a link to it in the description. And as always, you can follow me on social media. I really only use Twitter. That's @JessCur. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.